Right, guys, welcome back to another video. Today I am so privileged to have one of our members of staff, and he's going to be talking about land titles in Nigeria and why it is important to know this information. Now, just so you guys know, I have two cameras that I'm talking to. I'm talking to my laptop camera and I'm talking to my YouTube camera. So if it looks like I'm looking somewhere else, then it's because I've got two cameras I'm trying to look at here. So yeah, guys, we have Daniel on the line. Daniel, how are you?
Yeah, hi, very fine. I'm good, very good.
Daniel's shy, guys. He's a man of few words, but when he does speak, is very super effective and knowledgeable. I had to drag him. I said, listen, people need to see your face, Daniel, and you need to educate our diasporas and Nigerians. So, Daniel, as we discussed, so I just wanted to bring you on just to explain to people about land titles, in Nigeria, and why it's important for them to know, because, as you and I both know, there's so many cases whereby people have bought land without knowing the actual land title, and then for whatever reason, the land gets revoked or, things get taken away. There's always issues. So I'm going to hand over to you, and yeah, please help us shed some light on this.
So hi, my name is Daniel. I'm just a consultant. I work for Winifred Fashion Estate, right? We actually try to help people, buy good property, or not fall victim of buying the wrong property. People actually make a mistake of buying property because they are affordable, because they are cheap, or because they sound so good. So today we'll be talking about lands and their titles. That's something we should all know about titles of lands, right? Lands are a lot. Like lands are basically everywhere. There's some lands you shouldn't buy because it's not actually free from buying. So we'll be talking briefly about the titles of lands, the ones that are good to buy, the ones that are not so good to buy, the ones you should buy, and the ones you shouldn't buy. So out of a lot, because there are a lot, I'll just pick like the basic ones we should know, right? So I'll pick five of it. Which are number one, we have excision in process. EXCISION.
Okay, cool.
Again, EXCISION. As excision in process.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to give you the meaning of what it means. I was saying them the name and the meaning, right? So you can actually know what it actually means. So excision is actually like when the land is actually being under review. Now, before in the 1978, something we call family lands. All land belongs to families, like land belongs to one grandfather, godfather, and stuff like that. So in the year 1978, the government introduced the land use regulation. That means that before you can use a land for farming or for any purpose yet, you must apply for land use. So in this, over the time, the government actually modulates it. They actually doing it to have the government's approved decision. That means the government can allocate land to you because initially the land belongs to families. So over the time, before you can now buy land, you have to like go through the government. So the government tends to give you what land belongs to yours and stuff like that. So lands that are actually being owned by the government, right, is called the land that are government approved. Am I speaking too fast?
No, you're good.
All right. So over the time, the government actually take charge of the lands and they agree to sell lands. So that's what became about the title government appropriation and decision in process. So decision in process simply means that the land that is actually being reviewed by the government. That means it's not owned by the government or the people. The land is like still in the benchmark. So most times it's actually very risky to buy. When you buy a land as a decision in process, tomorrow it can either be for the government or you can be lucky and the government won't take the land. So it's actually like an imbalanced will when you buy a land that's actually
So
decision in process. Yeah.
So here's a question then, that maybe some diasporas might want to know. So if the land is in excision, yeah, so it doesn't belong to the government. It doesn't belong to the people. Who does it belong to?
When the land is actually in process, the government has not decided what to do with it. So that way, it is not fully for the family or for the government.
Okay.
So once the government now approves, that means the government has allocated such land for personal use.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to the second one, which is called government approved accession. Government approved accession simply means that the government has approved so and so land for residential use, commercial use, or anything it's being used for.
So let's just quickly go back. So excision in process, just to recap, it does, that means that the land, so it could just be an open space of grass and field. It doesn't belong to the government yet, and it doesn't belong to the people. It just simply exists. Yeah. So obviously you wouldn't want to go and buy land that the excision is in process because it's quite risky. You don't know what direction it's going to go into. Excision approved would be the next stage of this, and that means that the government has now decided that they want to use the land for like what you just said, like commercial use or to build residential areas.
Right.
You alright? Okay, cool.
Right. Now, so that's the number two. I'm trying to like make it step by step. So the first stage of a land is acquisition in process, right? That way, some people can actually say family owned, stuff like that. Now, when it's government approved, that means you know if it's actually a residential area, if it's actually a commercial area or stuff like that. So then the next one is the governor's consent. Now, this is actually basically the major thing that is actually being used in some part of Lagos, maybe like Lekki, for example. In Lekki, you hear stuff like governor's consent. Land is governor's consent or governors approved. Governments approved. Right. Now, what this means is that the government has given sole rights to so family. Now, out of the government approved decision, right? The governors have given so land. Remember, the lands belongs to the government. Lands belong to the government. The government decides what to do with each land, right? So after the land that belongs to the government, if the government chooses to give social family or sell social family the land, it means that it's called governor's consent. Now, a governor can choose to, out of his authority, own a piece of land or acres or hectares of land, right? So if all of this land is owned by the governor, and he chooses to give it out to social family or social person, right? It's called governor's consent. So the land has a permission from the governor to use for maybe residential or also, but most times it's residential.
Okay.
That's the third one. I don't know if you understand it, Edgar.
Okay, so let's just recap real quick. So first one, excision in process. Yeah. So that means that it doesn't the land is just existing. It doesn't belong to the government or the people. It's not been allocated or assigned for.
Right.
And then excision approved. Second stage, meaning that the government has now said this is what they want to do with this area of land. Governor's consent is number 3, right? Meaning that they've now said, okay, cool, this family is allowed to build a house on this land. Okay, now this isn't the final stage, is it?
No.
Okay, so what is it about this third stage that still makes it risky to I guess build land on? Because if they've approved the family to do this, then why is it still a bit risky?
Now, it's actually not so risky. It's just that it comes with some terms and conditions. Like, for example, there's some places you can use that site to for maybe for mortgage. Like a mortgage company won't take that as a title, right? Before you go to have a gazette, government consent is like it's most times there's no old water in some part of of the country. Like some companies don't overvalue it like that, right? Because let me give you an example: is a mortgage company. They don't take it as a title because they feel like your governor can come tomorrow, come and say, okay, say I revoke my authority, or another governor can revoke the authority. So it's not a 100%. So people say it is, but it is not 100% assurance for your land, right? But it's a level of security to it, but it's not 100%. Gazette actually shows the land that belongs to the government and the land that belongs to the community. It's actually like it's a record that has been filed in the government that shows that so and so land belongs to this community. Like, example, Eleko. Yeah? Eleko, actually, some part of it is gazetted. It means that some part of it belongs to the community. Right? It's being filed in the government that it belongs to the community. So, gazette is like it's a record that shows which land belongs to each community.
So the Gazette essentially what it does is it's telling it's outlining whether this land you know, it's for community in terms of like a family, right? Or it's for the government where they are going to use it to, like, let's say build a whole new bunch of schools or churches.
Right.
Yeah. So once you've gone through stage 1, 2, 3, the Gazette then just solidifies all of this and just makes it very clear that this land is for the Winifred Fashola family, and that's what, and they can get a C of O eventually and do all these things. Or this land belongs to the governor, and we're going to use it to build hospitals across Lagos. Basically, it just basically states what the land is being used for.
Right.
I'm just clarifying so that our diasporas, like, it's clear for our diasporas and anybody else who doesn't understand.
Right. As simple as that. Then the final one, which is the CFO. CFO actually means certificate of occupancy. Right. It actually shows that this land actually has been entrusted, entitled to individual. Now, in the beginning, all this land comes from the government to a community to a family. Then it now narrows down to an individual. Out of 1,000 square meter, it narrows down to a family. That means this portion of the land belongs to an individual. So it has been occupied by an individual. Like the final stage of title acquisition. So it says, okay, I, so and so person, owns 600 square meters of land in so and so community, right? Like when you buy a land in Lekki Phase 1, right? You buy a plot of land in Lekki Phase 1, you need to convert that plot into your name. Else, you're not really fully in control of that plot, that portion of land. Let me use that word, right? So you have to like pass to have a legal document, which is the CFO, that brings that land into your name. So that way, you are sure that anytime, any day, this land belongs to me. If anybody comes to you, you have a name attached to that land.
No, that's good, because like we've been, you know, like as you know, we've been doing loads of videos like on these topics, and I've been banging on about the importance of a C of O, you know. So I'm glad you're also saying what I'm saying, because I've been telling all the viewers that they need to, like, if you're gonna have a property that you want to keep for yourself permanently, have a C of O just to secure it. So good, thank you so much, Daniel, for explaining. So one thing that I wanted to sort of know from you is, so are there 5 stages or 4 stages? So is it stage 1, acquisition in process, approved, government, you know, the consent, Gazette, and then C of O, or is it, or are we skipping Gazette and that's not considered a stage?
No, let's just call it 5 stages. Let's because Gazette is also part of the process, right? Let's just call it 5 stages. If I'm going to arrange it to be shown in process, shown approved, Gazette, the governor's consent, and the CFO. Right?
So, what would you advise then our viewers? Like, what stages would you say is safe? Obviously, we can't guarantee anything, but from your experience, you know, what would you suggest or advise our viewers? What stages should they consider buying land at? Obviously, not the first stage, because, you know, it's still in process. Right. But what's the safest?
No, obviously, most times best one comes from the Gazette by governor's consent. That doesn't mean that the approved decision is not actually good. You can see by approved decision, but the period of time it takes to get to a CFO take a longer time, right? Time of processing from a Gazette or governor's consent. But the final stage has to be the CFO. So when you buy a government approved decision, right, you still have to process the documentation up to the CFO. So if you can buy from a position, that's good. If you get a Gazette, you can still buy Gazette, but never ever buy, or I don't think it's advisable. Let me say never. It's not advisable to buy a decision because it's actually very dicey. It's not advisable to buy a decision in process because it can turn out good, it can turn out bad. So, but I will not say either stage are not bad, they're not good, they are good. Right, you can buy approved decision, you can buy a Gazette, you can buy governor's consent, right? And if possible, you can also buy a CFO, right? So everyone, all of that is good, right? But just don't. I don't think it's wise to buy decision in process.
Yeah. For acquisition approved, as you said, it's going to take longer to get to the CFO stage. But it is sort of on track to getting there. Now, if it's a thing whereby, let's say the government now change their mind and they say, actually, although we've approved this, we've now decided that we want to completely use this land for our own commercial use. You know, what typically tends to happen, and I just want you to just confirm and just verify this for our listeners.
Now, most times when a case like that happens, you know, it's always good to have a CFO. But if for any purpose the government choose to take a land for any reasons, or maybe choose to do a land, right? If you have a CFO, right, the government is subjected to give you another piece of land, or maybe pay you maybe an equivalent or a ransom for that land. But if you don't, in Lagos State, you are not a full owner of the land because you don't have a CFO, right? So it is actually to be on the safer side, it's most likely to get to do it up to a CFO, so that in case anything happens, right? But once it's on government approved decision, it is not really likely for that to happen, right? Most likely not like that happen, but I don't think it has happened before. But if it happens, right, it's of two parts. It's either you give you another place, right, or the government give you a ransom. But I don't think that actually happened in Lagos. But advisably, it's best you process your documents up to CFO as soon as you can.
Of course, yeah. And obviously, like, I've been advising people that, you know, do a CFO if it's something that you want to keep for yourself permanently. If it's just for business, I don't think there's any point in doing a CFO, because it's not going to be you that ends up keeping it forever. So, you know, just to sort of, because what I was trying to get at was, it's essentially the properties that are at Exition approved. You know, if they do change their mind and decide that they actually want to use it for their own use and they don't want to give it to customers, I know that in a lot of companies, especially if you're buying from a retail company, they would either relocate you to a different piece of land, or they'll give you the equivalent of what you paid for it back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. That's actually why it's very good to buy for real estate company, right? Because they give you a sense of assurance, a sense of security when it comes to your property. Because if the case of government changing their mind happen, they have the duty to provide you with another, right? Or give you a refund for your money. Because if you buy from an individual, maybe like Omonile, for example, you may not get that. You will definitely not get that. So it's actually safer and more better to buy from a real estate company. And that gives you the level of security on your property.
Exactly. Cool. So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So yeah, no, Daniel, thank you. I really wanted to bring you onto this call, you know, so that our diasporas and people also in Nigeria can actually, you know, get it from a different perspective. And you know, yeah, it's been great having you on. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you again in another video, right? Are you gonna come back for another video?
Definitely.
Cool. All right, thanks, Daniel. Take care.
All right, bye.
So guys, there you have it. You've heard it from Daniel directly. He has explained to you the process and the stages, you know, of titles, you know, when buying land. So guys, please make sure that before you go and just give your money to anybody to buy you land, make sure you know the title of the land that you are buying. It is very, very important. So yeah, guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.